Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. I was listening to the last episode.
Oh, she's going to dive right in, huh?
Oh, man.
And
no
I thought
preamble, no foreplay.
I thought there was a lot of really good energy.
Yeah. It's
but,
so good. Such a good episode.
I noticed one thing when I was talking about the show Dope Sick. And I had 2 points that I wanted to make.
Oh, no.
One of those points was that if you are getting your information about the vaccine and the virus from the establishment, that you are being propagandized.
Right.
And then the other point I wanted to make, Eric edited out. and I'm not going to make that point again because you both seemed a little uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But the irony was not lost on this particular podcaster, that I was just saying we are being fed propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried to say something else, and my own co-host censored me.
Well, because we also don't want to feed people
okay. Well, let me make this
like
point then.
that.
If you're coming to Strange Eons Radio for medical advice, I would say that you should probably stop right now.
Yes.
We are
You
not
should.
professionals.
Well,
That's right.
That's the thing that I get worried about is, people do trust, voices that they listen to. And I just don't trust people to not trust us.
Well, I have higher respect for our listeners. I think they tend to be pretty smart people.
They love you and they want to get your approval, and they will do anything that they can, including taking things that we don't know enough about.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that what I said was factual. There was nothing. It was not an opinion.
We shouldn't give out. I don't even want to say to people like you should take aspirin. Because what?
Should I cut that out?
I didn't say somebody should take anything. I made a factual statement, and I was then
the factual
stopped by the
statement
man.
Is not agreed on by everybody.
I said there was mounting evidence.
Yeah,
and there is. That is a factual statement.
Oh my God. It's getting really weedy here, guys. I can't
more fun
see
that way.
through the clearing anymore.
It's fun, the weeds.
The bramble.
The weeds.
If you want to know what I said, you guys, you can just private message me.
Yeah, he'll talk to you all day long in DM.
I just thought it was interesting. That's all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, things that I say get cut out all the time. It's fine. Welcome to the club.
That's true.
Yeah, I talk way too much. Mm-hmm. I know, because you start to get that glazed over look. I know. I'm like, oh, this is going to get cut later.
I'm sorry, what?
Indeed. So what have you been up to lately, Kelly? Have you engaged in any fun new content?
Yeah, so I watched the last episode of Boba Fett, and I kind of liked it better, but it made me angrier because I just hate this whole flashback idea.
Oh, yeah.
I think the flashbacks are the more interesting part of the story, but for God's sakes, this last episode, we got a flashback that took place between 15 minutes of a Mandalorian episode, and I was fucking angry. Like, is that where we're at? Is we need to see this minute moment?
I've not. Let me start again. It rarely seems to work really, really good when you've got, here's your main storyline. Oh, we're going to have a flashback. Here's your main storyline. Oh, we're going to have a flashback. Just tell it in order.
Exactly.
There's no reason to do this because it's not like it's cause and effect.
No.
With the flashback, and then you see, oh, wow, he made, I forgot, the bantha stick, whatever those, the gaffy stick. He made that, and then, oh, wow, look, he's using it in this. It doesn't even do that much stuff. So it's like,
exactly.
Doesn't need to be. Yeah, anyways.
Also, he goes and he basically gets his ship and says, I've got some business to do, and wipes out the speeder bike gang, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
But we were told by the Pikes that they had talked to their people who are off planet,
Mhm.
and their people said, "Yeah, we're fine paying protection to these guys." Am I to believe then that the speeder bike gang is 15 people strong, and that him wiping them out while they were all out at the same time somehow stops their gang from being a consideration?
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a very childish scenario
Yeah.
that I'll just kill these guys and that solves the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So that bugged me. And then also, we know that his armor is no longer in the Sarlacc pit, but we see that
Mhm.
he doesn't remember that,
Mhm.
and he goes there, and they have this idea. This is bad storytelling because we know he's wasting time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If we didn't know that, and we find out through this scene that, oh, we all thought his armor was there and it's not there. Where is it next? Now you've added a little bit of mystery to this fucking story that needs every ounce of mystery we can squeeze out of it because it's so fucking boring.
Do you think that maybe they're under the assumption that some people haven't watched The Mandalorian?
No.
Okay.
I think that's part of what frustrates me the most. I don't hate it quite as viciously as Kelly does, but I'm not happy with the way it's going.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest problem for me is The Mandalorian was so damn good
It's so good.
and so rich that
I'll
they can't
disagree
even
with that a little bit, but it was 10 times better than this.
and they can't bring some of that. It's the same people. Why didn't
It's that difference between having to like tiptoe around a known property that's beloved and being able to create your own. Like it really is so toxic to try to engage with old Star Wars shit. I have not seen it done in a way that doesn't feel cringy on some level.
Yeah, I guess so. At the end of this episode, Fennec tells Boba Fett, "We know where we can get muscle with the right amount of money."
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this can only mean two things. We will finally get to see Bosk and Dengar and the other bounty hunters, which is what we were hoping we'd see in this.
Mhm.
Or Mando from The Mandalorian is going to show up because they basically reach out to him for help or something like that. They need something that is going to make fans happy.
Yeah.
And boy, I've been reading articles on this, and it is like just getting savage.
Yeah.
So it is not just me hating on this.
No. I mean, I stopped watching it. So I'm just like, oh, that sounds bad. I'm glad I haven't continued to waste time on it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we got such a interesting mystery with Grogu in The Mandalorian.
Oh,
There's just nothing like that. They couldn't give him a fat little hut to take care of or something, something that would make us go, oh, I'm invested in this.
Yeah.
Huts were once adorable.
Yes.
Oh, man. I do love that idea. Well, I finished up watching a show that I think you both are probably caught up on by now, Yellow Jackets.
Oh, yeah.
Did you finish
it last night.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you like
I think it's pretty good. It suffered a little bit from the level of hype I was hearing before I finally started watching it.
Sure.
But it's still really good. I expected a lot more weirdness that happens in it, but the story is still spot on and really damn good. And the performances and the people in it. I mean, Christina Ricci borders on unrecognizable.
Oh, for sure.
And Juliette Lewis hasn't been this good in a very, very long time.
No, she's owning it. And it's always great to see, oh no, I've forgotten her name now, Melanie Linsky.
Oh, yeah.
I
so
love
fun.
her. Weren't you telling me that she had something?
No, we were thinking of two different actresses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you were thinking of somebody who, wrong person.
That's the lady that plays Sarah, right? The lead, I guess you'd call her?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she is great.
And she's been in indie stuff for a long time. So getting to watch her get these like slightly larger roles is just
What was the movie? I no longer want to live on this world, or I no longer.
Oh, I never saw that.
It's really good. She is the powerhouse of that film, and just is fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm loving this kind of borderline of Kelly. You'd mentioned that there seemed to be an introduction of magic, and I don't know if there is, and it's so interesting to be kind of like on this edge of, is it just that there's mushrooms? Is it that people are reading into things that aren't really there? Is something watching them? And what are these symbols? And I'm just like, what the fuck is happening?
So I wouldn't say magic, but definitely supernatural.
Oh,
something supernatural.
Sure.
And you know, they have that that Ouija board moment in the cabin,
Yeah.
which is definitely not natural.
True.
They've got the deer with all of the maggots and everything inside of it. I don't know that could actually happen.
Right.
And they have the bear that basically comes and sacrifices itself.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not natural. This is supernatural.
Yeah.
In the purest form, at least. It is other than natural.
And here's a spoiler for people who haven't watched it. I thought that the very first episode reflected the person who dies in the last episode. So now I'm like, well, who the fuck dies? Yeah. What is going on? And then
there are a few things that weren't shown. Like there's a bit when I think it was Sarah was flashing back or remembering something where somebody with long hair is being dragged across snow.
Yeah.
And that hasn't occurred yet.
Yeah.
You're talking like in that very first episode, I think the first scene. And I guess we're supposed to realize that they must splinter off into different tribes.
Yeah. So I'm glad they did well. I mean, it did all right. So season 2 will definitely be coming along, which is good because it ends with I didn't say it's not it's a very satisfying ending, but there are lots of little threads still sitting out there, which they're not the kind of threads you go, well, that's just stupid.
Right.
Why didn't you solve this? They're the kind of threads that go, okay, I can see why you haven't addressed that yet, but I sure as hell hope you do.
Yeah, like I want you to pull that. I want that sweater to come a little looser right there because I really need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, introducing any additional alive characters in the current day, I'm like, fuck yes. Who else lives? What other insanity is happening? Like I assumed like, it was just the people we saw, but now it's like, oh my God, it could be so many more.
Yeah, I think that, I was very satisfied with it because I thought it was a very well-written season ender, and it asked more questions that it answered, although it answered a couple of questions.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I would like to have seen something more, get closer to that first episode scene that we saw. I would like to have seen them kind of splinter apart or something so that we could go, okay, now we're going to get into the meat of it. But I heard an interview with the writers, who are a husband and wife team, and they basically pitched this to Showtime as, I think, a 4-year series.
Oh, wow.
And Showtime said, yeah, we're all in.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
one thing too, doing a good writing, the introduction of in the last episode. So if you're not there, skip forward a bit. When they bring back, it's not really a spoiler, but they bring back the girl whose leg was broken.
Oh my God.
And she tries to insert herself into being part of the team and part of the experience. Like that's such a great little moment for, a nothing character as far as the overall story arc. That's awesome.
And it's great because like you just feel it in your bones. Like, yeah, you weren't there. Like you don't know. You're not shit.
Speaking of ongoing series, I completely missed that Star Trek Discovery season 3 or something like that, or 4 came out last November.
Oh.
So I was looking through see if there's if there's anything new in the Star Trek Paramount Plus world. I'm going, oh crap, there's a whole friggin' season of Star Trek Discovery. So I started watching that again, and I still like it a lot.
Is it the one that starts with her like several years later?
No, that was
3? Yeah. Oh crap, I missed one too. How did that happen?
I don't know. It just didn't announce it well or something. It's really strange. Have you watched any? Did we talk about that last time? Star Wars: The Prodigy show or Star Trek?
Star Trek Prodigy. I have seen. I think I saw the whole thing.
The first episode was one of the best episodes of Star Wars animation I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't that good, but Jesus, it's Star Wars. It's like there's all these.
It's like the Clone Wars animation, right?
Oh yes, and but not only that, the characterization is like Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's all these droids and giant mechs are the bad guys,
and kind of like a
what?
slave pit, basically.
I looked, I think, like 3 times, hit the little button to things. I am watching Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
I hear it gets more Star Trek after the first episode, but I don't know if I
don't know.
care or
It
not.
gets it's more Nickelodeon kids show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the only thing the reason why I'm watching it is because I fucking love Janeway more than anything. So I'm like, yes, I will listen to you speak for that. I will put myself through whatever just to get more of that content. But aside from her, it really doesn't feel like Star Trek. It really feels like Star Wars.
It's very Star Wars, yeah. And it's actually probably not a best episode of Star Wars, but I mean, it's just like
it's just not Star Trek.
Lost from the Clone Wars. We have
these kids.
Nice. Well, I told you guys that I was downloading comic books and the Masterworks and the Epic collections and all that stuff, and I'd gotten into Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, and then I had read this article that was like everything you need to read before the Moon Knight series starts, and I was like, well, I've already got all that, and then I looked at it and I was like, I don't have these series. I didn't realize he's got like 7 different iterations of himself now.
Mm-hmm.
And did you guys see that extended trailer for Moon Knight?
Yeah.
At first I was a little upset because I was like, what is going on with this Stephen Grant character? This is not the Stephen Grant that I remember.
Correct.
And then getting the phone call where she calls him Mark, and I was like, oh, so he's blocking out all of his personalities. They're really going to treat this as a very serious case of dissociative identity instead of the stuff that kind of drove him a little nutty to begin with in the series that I read. So anyway, I started reading some of that stuff and started rereading the Daredevil and some of the old Moon Knight, and I was really just struck about Vanessa in our day. Marvel Comics had a moment, 1981 to 1987 maybe, where they were just fucking nailing it, and every movie that has been made deals with a story that was written back then. Basically, all the Thor storyline is coming from then. The X-Men storylines that are any good were coming from that era.
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting to me that they're not pulling from their recent things. They're pulling from this classic 7 or 8 years of Marvel. And as I'm rereading it, I'm like, wow, this is way better than it should be. I read these when I was 10 and I loved them. And I'm reading them now. And, sometimes you turn a page on a Frank Miller book and there's no dialogue on it at all. And then you turn the next page and it's almost, you might as well be reading a book. The words are crowding out all the pictures. And just the information being given visually and then textually, I'm like, wow, this is really something else. And the knowledge of knowing that, when you're holding a physical copy, you gotta hold off on that surprise until the person turns the page. It can't be when you're laying the book flat. It can't be on the right-hand page because your eye will automatically see it, right? So just knowing that you're forced into these weird writing deals, it's just been blowing my mind. I've really been enjoying this Daredevil run, and Frank Miller has turned into, an old grumpy man that is kind of hard to listen to. But boy, there was a time when he could do no wrong.
Yeah, that Daredevil run is phenomenal.
Yeah, then he went.
The best Daredevil stories.
Yeah,
come from that run.
I agree. Yeah, because he introduced Elektra there and Bullseye and all of this very cool stuff. And then, of course, he goes on to do Ronin, and then follows Ronin with The Dark Knight Returns, and then 300, and it's just like, wow, whatever was going on with him was really hitting on all cylinders.
Cocaine did him well. No,
right.
I have no idea. It was the 80s, so I just assume. But I forgot the name of it. The one he did with Sienkiewicz, the Daredevil story, which is really more Kingpin story, where he's trying to get his wife treated for some kind of an illness, is just brilliant. And it's
that's not collected in is that like a graphic novel story
it's
or
a
something?
one-off.
Okay.
And it's just incredible.
I will say, now that I'm getting more and more into these kind of more known properties of not just my indie one-off comics that I've been digging into for a while, every time I try to find a storyline, even from a few years ago, like, they're just gone. You cannot get these, like, even when they're actual volumes of stuff and not individual single issues, like, these things just disappear, and then they're on eBay for something that came out 2 years ago. It was the first half of a Daredevil run with Chip Zdarsky, I think. You can't get. It's like $70 or $80 to buy this like one edition. And are you kidding me? What is happening right now?
That's because it's the secondary market. Why bother spending the money to print again when you just Comixology it? And,
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
The world has changed.
Right.
I guess I have to do digital, but it's always great to hear these things I can look forward to digging into. Well, I also watched a movie that was pretty controversial. I don't think I talked about it last time. Don't Look Up.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I've heard it's good overall. I've heard it's done well, but I don't.
Yeah,
Seen that.
it was definitely one of those satire. It's really difficult to sit through because everyone's making the wrong decision, and it's the wrong decision, and it's a really obvious allegory for like COVID and scientists and like officials being really stupid and making awful decisions that are all financially based or based around their own election. It was pretty enjoyable. It was also weird. It felt like a lot of very, very famous people were in this movie for smaller parts for no reason. So, for example, Timothée Chalamet from Dune, he just shows up about 2/3 of the way in and starts dating one of the main characters. And he's just a stoner. And he's just hanging out in the car with them a bunch. And you're like, what is happening? And they give him a mullet. And you're like, okay. And that's what it's like the whole way through. You're like, what? Why is I think it's Meryl Streep in here as the president for no reason. Like, what is going on?
Well, it's Meryl Streep.
I mean, it's great.
You're casting a movie in Hollywood. Who do you want to be the president? Well, Meryl Streep.
It just feels like
they've already had. What's his name?
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. He's already been president
like 5 times. Yeah,
had a whole bunch. Who else? Oh, I know.
Well, I don't mind her being it. It's just strange that such a A-lister is in like there's so many very, very famous people in like not huge roles in this that it feels almost like how I imagine Mars Attack felt when people watched that. They were just like, what? Oh, wow. Okay. And now you're here. But no, it was a pretty good, interesting enough film, but I think you have to be in the right headspace for it.
Sure.
I think it was more obviously an allegory for climate change, because here's something that nobody wanted to take seriously until it was too late to take it seriously.
Yeah, I feel like it works on both levels. But
the problem I had with it is I thought it was really good at the beginning when they were showing that the media has turned us against each other, and you have to pick a side and then fight it out.
Yeah.
But then it became Republicans bad, Democrats good, which is just the media telling us to pick a side and fight. And I was like, oh, you guys, you were making a great point, and now you are doing the point you were trying to make.
That was very irritating. And it sucks too, because I mean, that's Hollywood, right? Like Hollywood is Democrat.
Sure.
So you're going to get that left-leaning perspective of like Republicans suck and we had to endure 4 years of Trump and fuck that guy and fuck everyone who loved him. So that's what you're getting near the end. And I'm also at that point where I'm like, could we like just not make it like that particular line where it's like, don't look up theme of the Republican Party of there is an asteroid coming. Just don't look up at the sky and it's fine. And it's like
it's a little heavy-handed.
It's a bit heavy-handed.
I don't get it. What?
I know. And then one day at a rally, somebody looks up and is like, "Wait, there's something there." And it's like, this is fucking awful. Okay, like I don't think Republicans are stupid at all. I think that there's a lot more going on.
Well, sure, and what's going on is we have been told that your neighbor is your enemy, and that's not the way to bring a country together.
It's awful. It's so awful.
I mean, whether you love or hate the guy, years and years ago, Jon Stewart was on Crossfire. And it's one of the best examples of what you're talking about I've seen, where he takes the two guys to task going, you aren't solving any problems. All you two guys are doing is arguing back and forth against each other. You pick side A, you pick side B, and then you argue. You never reach agreements. You never accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So what is the point of this show? We need you. We need actual media that actually presents ideas and options, but you aren't it. Yeah. Well, that's all the media is now.
Wait a second. What was their response to that?
they bitched and whined and
They were
complained
like,
at him, and then the show got canceled like a week.
Shun the outsider.
Yeah, and the show got canceled like a week later.
Oh my
it really
God.
devastated the show.
Whoa.
He was dead on.
It's unfortunate that is literally all the news
That's
is
what
now.
it is now. Yeah.
Like the only news I can handle watching almost is like local news, because it's like the street
Weather,
hydrant
street
broke.
weather,
And
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like this freeway is really jammed. Ooh, guys. I'm like, facts. It's a fact. Look,
Right.
I can see it.
Eric will edit this out, but the real problem is we have been forced into a duopoly, and
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans play a game of I lose, you lose, and we're both fine with it as long as we are always the only people you can vote for.
I was thinking
Right.
about this with the filibuster. Like, I seem to remember the last time there was a big filibuster debate. Wasn't it while the Republicans were in power, and it feels like every time it's the opposite party that's like,
Well, yeah, that's
no,
how
we
it
need
works.
it. We need
That's
it.
how- yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, you guys, could anyone just be like, you know what, we're going to take one for the team
No.
this time around. And it's our turn to be fucked over by the filibuster. And you know what, let's go ahead and, as the winning team, let's get rid of the filibuster. I'm just so frustrated. Like, could we get rid of the stupid fucking rules that are like petty and dumb and like prevent us from doing anything? In 4 years, you'll probably be able to reverse it anyway if you
Right.
have any
Yeah,
kind of
there you
power.
go.
So,
Can you imagine if we limited spending on the election cycle?
oh my God.
And the Republicans and the Democrats just got together and said, look, I'll take $1 billion out of our spending. You take $1 billion out of yours, and let's fix some roads or something.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's do
Be
something
so
that
good.
helps the country.
Yeah. And not like put out a bunch of flyers everyone throws away immediately, or puts on ads that people like skip through and like mute, which is what I like to do. 'Cause I'm like, stop talking. I don't care about you.
All right, Eric, I hope you have something good to talk about after this.
Yeah, John Carpenter was right.
Ooh.
Halo Infinite is fucking awesome. He said
Nice.
it's the best release of Halo yet, and he's right. Through the help of, I don't know if he wants me to say anything about it, but through the help of somebody, you know who you are. Thank you very much. I acquired one of the ridiculously hard to get Xbox at a
Woo.
retail price as opposed to the $900 they sell on eBay or whatever.
Mm.
And of course, Halo Infinite's first game I play. So damn good.
It's fun. And did you, it's multiplayer, right? Like, it's not multiplayer, but it's live playing with a bunch of other
Halo's
human
had
beings.
both for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So it's got the solo one, so you don't have to play with a bunch of 12-year-olds yelling pointless insults that are ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can just play the game.
Yeah.
So that's what I tend to do.
Yeah.
Or if I do go into the multiplayer ones, I don't have headphones on.
That's for the best.
I don't need to hear the
You don't need
stupid
to
shit
know.
that 12-year-olds think is a clever insult.
So does Halo Infinite have a version of it that's like just a storyline? I just assumed it was only
No, all
like
the
the
Halos
online
do.
multiplayer.
All the Halos do.
I
You've got
didn't
the
realize.
main storyline, and then
Huh.
you've got the other stuff if you want to do it. But
Oh,
I
that's awesome.
rarely do, because
Yeah.
you
I
go
know.
into those group things and you're going against people that are in school, so they're playing 12 hours a day or whatever, and you just bam, instantly dead.
Dead.
Well, this is boring.
Yeah, dude, I played like a week's worth of COD Blops at one point. And
I'm sorry, what?
Call of Duty Black
Oh,
Ops.
okay.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like you have little maps and everyone has memorized every map, every weapon, it's awful.
Yeah, I just play the solo versions of those too. There's the regular side games you can play. You just do that.
Mhm.
Because that one's even worse than Halo. The
It's
people that play that
awful.
on a regular basis
Yeah.
that think they're clever they're kind of like, wow, Twitter is so much smarter than you think if you hear these idiots talking.
In comparison.
Halo is set in the future. Call of Duty is set in the past.
It's in the present or near future.
Largely future now. They've sort of, the last couple ones have moved into technologies that don't exist yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say the one that I was playing was far future, but it did feel a little bit future-y.
Yeah.
Yeah. The setups were all like, this is a cool location, but it's all destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay, Zoomer.
I am barely a millennial. I'm more Gen X than anything. I'm Oregon Trail.
Well, why don't we take a break? We can check your dysentery, and we come back and we're talking about movies that have people before they were stars in it.
news from Brown's Chicken. While we've always cooked our chicken in cholesterol-free cottonseed oil, we now have cholesterol-free batter, too. So our chicken is cooked completely cholesterol-free. And it tastes just as great as always. We figured a lot of people would like our new, healthier way of cooking, but quite frankly, the response has been better than we'd anticipated. Brown's Chicken, it tastes better, and it's better for you.
We're back. I don't know what awesome commercial Eric has edited in there, but I really enjoyed, was it last week's? I'm trying to think of what it was, but I got a real chuckle out of it. Oh, it was The Amazing Kreskin.
Oh, yes.
I was like, fuck, I think I used to have that. That was fun. I appreciated that. Good job. Okay, this time the subgenre pick was mine, and I picked the idea being that a lot of these genre films will have somebody who goes on to much bigger stardom than you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, both in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, with that in mind, I chose a movie that I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, and it is called Prison.
Enter another world
We just hanging around this slaughterhouse waiting for our turn.
Sir, the power's down all over the prison.
where something is trapped in the dark.
Something grabbed hold of me.
Some things just won't stay buried.
It's something evil.
I summoned the creature of darkness.
It's something inhuman.
What's happening in there?
And it's waiting for someone
Come forth and show yourself.
to open the door. Now the evil is loose and there is no escape.
Not a pleasant place to spend one's life, is Miss Walker.
Prison.
Underrated.
Very underrated. 1987. Although most people wouldn't agree with you, Eric. It had a budget of about anywhere from 1 to 4 million. Box office of 335,000.
Oof.
Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it 40%, and the audience only gives it 34%. But I don't know what's going on. I think that this is just a hard film to find, and maybe it's underseen, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've even heard of this movie.
Well, it was directed by this whole
of this
movie is before they were stars.
Yeah.
Right from the
Oh.
top down.
Yeah.
So directed by Rennie Harlan. 5-time Golden Raspberry nominated Rennie Harlan.
Oh, dear.
Who would then, right after this, go on to direct Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, Deep Blue Sea, and a bunch of other movies that you know and love.
Yeah.
It was written story by Irwin Yablas, who produced the first 3 Halloween movies.
Oh.
And the screenplay was actually written by C. Courtney Joyner, who has done the Puppet Master movies, the class of 1999, Dr. Mordred. He is very much a Empire Films staff writer. Starring Elaine Smith, who you'd probably know as the prosecutor in My Cousin Vinny. This guy has just been around forever as a character actor. For me, it was his 84 episodes in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman as Perry White. I came to really love him then. But my Before They Were Stars star is actually Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, snap.
Who prior to this was in one episode of Miami Vice, and he was one of the Amish people in Witness, but I don't think he had a name. After this, he would go on to star as Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, and then my 2 favorite movies of him are History of Violence and Eastern Promises.
Ooh.
It also stars Chelsea Field, who was Tila in the Masters of the Universe movie. She's very, very pretty. Dust Devil, she was in The Dark Half, and she is the better half of Scott Bakula.
Oh.
It also stars Kane Hodder,
Yeah.
who after this would go on to be in Friday the 13th, Part 7, his first outing as Jason. And then Tiny Lister, who you would know as the President of the United States in The Fifth Element and a lot of other things. Playing an off, whatever his stereotype typecast is, he is playing against that. He is surprisingly sincere and deep in this film, which is probably just, kind of stunt casting, because if you know who I'm talking about, very large black man with kind of a eye that's not, it's a wall eye, I believe is the incorrect way, or the public, politically incorrect way to say it. I'm sure there's an actual
probably
medically correct way to say it. You would also recognize him from The Dark Knight. He is the on the two boats that one of them has to choose which boat they're going to explode before the other one does. Do you remember this thing? The Joker puts that out. Yeah. He is the inmate who takes the remote and crushes it. And you're like, oh shit, the inmate was the only person here that had a good heart. Okay. I've filibustered enough. Vanessa explained to me what filibuster meant over the break, and I'm going to use it as often as I can now. So,
sure.
In 1964, we see a prisoner being taken to the electric chair and executed in this prologue. We don't get to see what the prisoner looks like. It's kind of like through his eyes, but it is a very creepy, cool little room they take him into that's just got a electric chair in the center of it and a couple of windows. It's like a round room. And then we come to the present being 1987, of course. And we see that the prison had been shut down after that, like 4 years after that guy was executed, but it is being reopened. And the guard we saw in the first scene is now going to be the new warden of this prison. He's a hard ass, and he's got all of these new prisoners, and he's going to have them start cleaning up the old prison as part of their work duties. So we get to see that the prison is in disrepair and kind of falling apart, and he's making the inmates fix it up, which is kind of cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah. I think
so. So he's got one crew who is, including Vigo, working in one area, and they are pounding out this wall, and they pound a hole through one of the walls, and this crazy light starts shining through. And it's very cool looking in the way that this very small time frame had. This Hellraiser, a couple other movies just had this wild look to it that was all practical and on film, and this just looks awesome. They break through this wall, and this light just pours out, and it's like, wow, awesome. So it becomes very apparent that by doing that, they have released a force into the prison, and it has been locked in that one little area, and that's when the story really kicks off. The woman in this, Chelsea, she is the nurse in this thing. She's been brought in. She's the only female. Of course, she's very pretty, so that causes some tension with the gang. And of course, Vigo is very handsome, and that causes some tension between the two of them. But mostly this is the story of the warden, who is clearly very uncomfortable with what starts happening. And what starts happening is some crazy haunted house shit in a prison. With each little kind of episode of a haunt paying off in a pretty great gory death. So one of the inmates is working alone in this cramped area, and he's doing electrical work, and he's kind of pushed up in there. You could see that this is a very uncomfortable space he's in, and he's got like some steel bars that are around him, and then all these wires hanging. He's doing this stuff, and he finishes the work, and he starts trying to extricate himself, and he's kind of caught in there, and it's if you were like me and you've got a little bit of claustrophobia, this is a scene that, kind of amps up the anxiety. But then you start seeing, as he's wiggling around and kind of getting himself stuck in there more, the wires start moving, and they're holding him in different ways and tightening around him and stuff. And he starts realizing, oh, fuck, this isn't even me doing this. What's going on? And the pipes start moving on him too. And they're not just squishing him. One of them comes from like above his head and then just starts gently pushing itself through his skull.
Oh my God.
I was just like, wow, what a great fucking scene. It's really good because it's so slow. It's not like a chunk. It's like just a very slow movement of this pipe going through him. So then we cut to all the prisoners who are eating in the cafeteria, and the ceiling starts crumbling away, and we realize he's been working right above them at some point. So they all get out of the way, and this guy's body and literally gallons of blood just plop right onto their table. It is a pretty gory, bloody scene that I really was happy with, because they're all like, what the fuck?
That sounds magical.
In a different scene, we get one of the guards who is kind of snoozing at his post, and he's been an asshole. So you're just like, oh, I cannot wait to see this. But it really goes to show you that whatever is going on here, this force is going to kill everybody. Yeah. It does not want this prison opened up again. So this guard is snoozing at his post, and we see behind him this big spool of barbed wire starts unspooling, and then it just slowly winds itself all over and around him while he's sleeping. And it's all very loose and everything, but then it all just goes taut, and he gets kind of like, but then the craziest part of it is that, he's this mush and everything. And the next scene is the warden in his office. He's just doing some paperwork and such. And then the bloody guard all mushy and strapped to his chair and everything, he literally explodes up from the floor underneath the warden. And it's like, whoa, where the fuck is this? But he's all wrapped in the barbed wire and shit. And the warden, he starts freaking out, as you would. But when a guard comes in and is like, what happened? He starts screaming, is this real? Is this real? Can you see that? And you're like, oh, so he's having some hauntings of his own by being in here.
Oh.
So unfortunately, the story kind of falls apart from here, although it's still super entertaining.
Yeah.
And it turns out that in 1964, they executed this guy that we saw in the prologue, who was an inmate who had murdered another inmate and was sentenced to death. But when we finally get to see him, it's Vigo.
Oh.
And so the new Vigo must be a reincarnation of him or something.
Huh.
But they don't really spell that out. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because Vigo seems to also be having issues with whatever this force in the prison is. So it's kind of like a missed opportunity to be like, yeah, this guy is in prison. This new prisoner is the problem and all of that. I really wanted it to go that way, and it never does. Anyway, what they do explain is that inmate was innocent of the murder of the other inmates. So his spirit is killing everyone in the prison until he gets justice and revenge. Because who do you really think killed the inmate back in 1964?
A ghost?
No, the guard who is now the warden.
Oh, of course.
So
they've all come back in fury. But
well,
shouldn't
just
they just
him.
murder him?
It's just him, and he's murdering everybody.
Okay.
He wants this place shut down, I guess.
Huh. All right.
It kind of falls apart at the end, which is too bad because it's pretty great up till then.
Yeah.
I think it's a very cool little flick. It came out in, like I was saying, that singular time where we had practical effects, and even the lighting had to be practical. You couldn't just throw a digital light source, that blue beam of light that explodes out of the earth and points up to the sky. Now, none of that shit is real. And back in Ghostbusters and all that stuff, they had to build a tiny little city and then make that light source and all that. And that's, it's just a great, great time as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
Some trivia on this. The film was shot on location at the former Wyoming State Penitentiary. The facility had been vacant since its closure in 1981 after the construction of a new state penitentiary, and was made freely available for film production after producer Irwin Yablans approached the state during a search for abandoned prison facilities. Because the facility was slated for demolition, little regard was given for its preservation, and the production crew was offered free license to make permanent, oftentimes destructive modifications as necessary.
Nice.
This included drilling a large passage through the prison's reinforced concrete perimeter wall, which was mocked up as a big, huge vehicle gate for the film. It looks really cool. It is a very imposing-looking prison.
Yeah.
Very interesting here. The majority of the extras portraying prisoners were real-life inmates of the Wyoming State Penitentiary, including former stuntman Stephen E. Little, who was serving a sentence of manslaughter at the time. His SAG membership dues were paid in current, and he was cast in a speaking role.
Oh, my
Nice.
God.
That must have been an interesting conversation how that came up. Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah, AD, come here.
So I was telling you guys about that execution room at the beginning, that little round room. So the execution chamber shown in the film is the penitentiary's original gas chamber, which replaced hanging after 1936 as the legal method of execution for condemned criminals in the state. The chamber was never used for electrocutions. Vigo did the bulk of his own stunts, and stunt coordinator Kane Hodder gave Mortensen an honorary stuntman shirt at the completion of the shooting for this film.
Aww.
Nice.
So I was telling you about Tiny Lister and how imposing a person he is, all that. A special set of sledgehammers had to be purchased for actor Tiny Lister so that they did not appear to be toys when he held them.
Oh my God.
His sledgehammers weighed 18 pounds, and then he had another one that was a 20 pound. I'll tell you this, a 12-pound sledge is just fine for a normal person. It's a regular heavy sledge. So 18-pound sledgehammer. Yeah.
Wow.
And then finally, I always hate hearing this, and I will always make fun of hearing this.
Okay.
Lane Smith remained in character as Warden Sharp throughout the duration of the filming.
What for?
Exactly.
Like,
and
that's
also,
ridiculous.
I hope that means that he would be there and then he'd be like, well, what are all these cameras doing in my penitentiary?
Exactly, yes.
Why is there a snack table here? Who is eating?
What do you mean, cut? Fuck you if you're an actor who does that kind of shit. It's called acting, you guys.
Ah, yes.
I feel like it's got to be a lot harder to turn it on and off than it is to just sit in it. So
I don't
method
care.
acting is
You're in a Empire film horror movie, and you've got to be, you're not dealing with Spielberg here.
Yeah, it's not my left foot.
I heard a great interview with Woody Harrelson, and he was talking about Matthew McConaughey and how much they love each other and everything. But he was like, in True Detective, Matthew had to stay in character because he was that dark person and everything.
Oh,
and
sure.
Woody's like, I mean, it really worked for him, but I wanted to kick his fucking ass every day.
Well, it's like the famous story from Marathon Man with who are the two? Dustin Hoffman and Lawrence of Arabia, I believe. Icon of acting.
Yeah.
And there's a torture scene in there where Dustin Hoffman's supposed to be tortured by a dentist character. He didn't sleep the night before, and then he ran around the studio or something like that until he felt totally exhausted. And the actor looked at him and go, my boy, that's why we call it acting.
Lawrence of Arabia, more like Lawrence of Arabia. Am I right, Vanessa?
Oh my God, no.
So what movie are you talking about?
Oh my God. That's so upsetting on every level. Where did that even come from? Why? Do you think he's dreamy? Is that what's happening? What does this mean?
Here's the thing. I have a very fucked up brain.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that. Okay. Well, my celebrity movie, moving swiftly along, is actually a movie that this is not my first screening of it. I do really deeply love this movie. So,
Okay.
So I will say that up front, in case it's not for everybody, but the 1985 movie Phenomena.
The wind, yes. The phone. Very particular wind. Typical of this part of the country. It comes from the Alps. The blasts of warm air cause snow avalanches. While it blows, there are those who say it causes madness. Have you any idea why they behave like that? Never done this before.
It's probably because of me. I guess they sense the mood I'm in.
See, he's not afraid of you. He won't do that for me. Ask him to lead you where the dead bodies are hidden. And he'll lead you. That fly is your magic wand. It's perfectly normal for insects to be slightly telepathic.
Yeah, it's normal for insects. But am I normal? I love you. I love you all.
What was the movie?
Phenomena.
Did it star Laurence Olivier? Because that was the guy that was in Marathon Man.
Oh, okay. Yes. So this movie has a Rotten Tomato rating of 76% from critics and 68% from audience. It has a budget of ? It has a box office of, look, the behind the scenes info is frighteningly little. So the box office info, all I could find was $515,000 in Italy or whatever, lira, I don't know, and 100
in lira.
I don't.
That's like $15.
I guess. I know. I was like, maybe it is dollars, and 140,000 in Spain. But that seems weird to me because this is directed by Dario Argento, and this was not his first rodeo. He had already done Bird with the Crystal Plumage. He did The Cat of Nine Tails, which Eric has really recently talked about. Mm-hmm. We also know him, of course, from Suspiria and Deep Red, which Eric also talked about. Inferno, Tenebrae, and Opera, which is, I think, one of the main ones I haven't seen. But yeah, like I think he must have had a way bigger Italy box office, but maybe not. I don't know. It's weird. If so, it is an epic failure. Starring, and this is what I love, Jennifer Connelly. This is one of her very, very first roles as Jennifer Corvino. This is going to be a running theme of easy to remember names. She's since been in 51 titles. This was her third ever film. And this is the first, or the film that came out 1 year before Labyrinth. She then went on to do Dark City, Requiem for a Dream, A Beautiful Mind, and of course, Betty Ross in Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Of course.
She's also currently in the Snowpiercer TV series, which I did not realize. And now I'm like, maybe I should check it out. So she's very young. She's, I'd say maybe 16 in this movie. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girl. Donald Pleasance is also in this movie, but he has already had many credits. He plays a character called John McGregor, and he's been in 240 things, including Halloween, Halloween 2, The Great Escape, many, many other great films. Patrick Bacow as Inspector. He's been in 147 things, and I remembered him only as Sydney in The Pretender. Daria Nicolodi, who is Argento's partner, who also starred in Deep Red and co-wrote Suspiria, is in this. Fior Argento, which is Dario Argento's daughter, is Girl Who Runs from Killer and Puts Face Through Glass. And Dario Argento is in this really shoehorned as a narrator. I feel like that was a production studio note.
Or if there's any killings with a black glove, that's him.
Oh, I think there is at least one black glove scene. So yeah, there was a couple of really good Argento trademarks.
He's a little uncomfortable and creepy like that.
Yeah, I would believe it. I mean, he did shoot it having his daughter in this movie, and he just chucked her face through a thing. And his wife doesn't fare a lot better. Not at all least, but certainly last, Tanga the monkey. This is Tanga's only acting credit. Have you guys both seen this movie?
Yeah, Anthony K made me watch this, and I was like, wow. I liked this movie quite a bit.
Yeah. This is, I think it's my favorite Argento movie. It goes this, Deep Red, and then Suspiria.
You should check out Opera. That's one of my favorites.
I'm so excited to check out Opera. I'm really, really stoked for it. Costumes for this movie, Giorgio Armani.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. There's a lot of trivia I gained just by looking at the credits. That was very exciting. Music by Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Andy Sex Gang, and a little bit of Goblin. Because how can you not? Where they literally just took some of their score from Dawn of the Dead and repurposed it. So,
sure.
The plot. Now, it's an Argento, so
Are you saying it's a little loose?
I would say it's extremely strange and confusing and nonsensical, and it feels very surrealist, and you're not really sure what's happening and why, but that's okay. Just roll with it. So, after missing a bus in the Swiss countryside, a teenage Danish tourist, young girl, looks for help at a beautiful chalet/home that looks like something from Sound of Music in the hillside. It's gorgeous. Inside, she goes in and it's totally empty and looks abandoned, covered in spider webs, but is attacked by an unseen person/thing wielding some scissors. It is bound up by some chains and it breaks free and continues to chase her out of the chalet and up seems like a national park or something. There's all these railings. It's this waterfall where it smashes her face into glass, decapitates her head, throws the head in the river, and then wanders off with her body. As you do. It's very elaborate, but we don't know what this thing or person looks like because it's all kind of this POV, almost Evil Dead, Sam Raimi style camera work. 8 months later, forensic entomologist John McGregor, which is Donald Pleasance in a wheelchair with a Scottish accent, pure joy, and his chimpanzee, Inga, are on the case. He is able to date the head using insects to tie it to the original crime. Since then, several girls have gone missing. At the same time, Jennifer Corvino, the daughter of a famous American actor, arrives at the Swiss Richard Wagner Academy for girls. She instantly befriends her roommate, Sophie, by eating some baby food out of a jar, and also makes enemies with the headmistress for having a big poster. That night, she begins to sleepwalk up to the roof where she witnesses a girl's murder, I think in her sleep. She then falls off the roof, wanders into the woods, and awakens on a road where 2 German boys sideswipe her with their car and then try to rape her. She throws herself out of the car and rolls down the woods to nearby Professor McGregor's house, where I think the monkey brings her into the house, and they make fast friends because they both love bugs. All right, I hope you're with me so far.
Must love bugs.
The monkey and her both love bugs?
No. I'm sorry, Professor. The professor and her.
Okay.
Yeah, both are obsessed with bugs, love bugs. Bugs are the best thing ever. She has this whole thing about, bugs don't harm me. Bugs, for some reason, they really like me. They'll never sting me.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. There's a great scene at the start where she's being driven to this girls' academy and there is a bee flying around and everyone freaks the fuck out for this bumblebee. And they're like, no. And it's Argento's wife just swatting wildly. And then the bee goes in front of the driver and he's swatting and it's swerving back and forth. And Jennifer Connelly's like, no, it's going to be fine. And grabs the bee and the chick's like, no, it'll sting you. And it's like, wow, this is the biggest overreaction to a bee I have ever seen. And I don't love bees, but come on, people. But yeah, she's got a special connection with them. So she returns to school where they are very suspicious about her having this sleepwalking situation and put her on they said EEG machine. I don't think that's right. Where they put a bunch of stuff on her head, these little sticky things, and tell her that they believe she's schizophrenic. She explains that she used to sleepwalk and has been studied for years by the most famous doctors in the world because her dad is super famous, and it isn't a problem. The headmistress and students begin to super bully her and make fun of her for her connection to bugs and for her sleepwalking and for literally reasons that are really confusing and make no sense at all. There's like a girl who runs up to her, taps her on the shoulder, and then just sticks out her tongue and makes some strange sounds. And I'm like, I don't think Dario Argento has ever been a young girl in a boarding school, from my understanding, because this is strange.
Probably a safe bet.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw that out there. To make matters worse, her roomie / new BFF isn't much help with this bullying situation because she sneaks out in the middle of the night when she's supposed to be watching her and making sure that Jennifer Connelly doesn't sleepwalk again, because her boyfriend is there and she wants to go out into the woods and make out with him before he goes off to the military for something or another. She literally gets there, starts making out with him, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta go. I gotta get up early in the morning." And she's like, "Fuck you." And he's like, "Okay." And then she wanders off into the woods and is killed by the mysterious murderer. Now, Jennifer confides her problems with the professor, who empathizes with her for being so different. She tells him she has a special connection to the bugs, which he believes is a telepathic connection, as apparently all insects are telepathic on some level. Facts.
Sure. Okay, sure.
Together, using her telepathy, they try to uncover who the murderer is. Shit gets crazy and crazier and crazier. And the last minute of this movie may be the most insane thing you will ever see on film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I highly recommend this film. Just a couple of quick fun features. As I mentioned, overreaction to a small bee. Monkey with a protruding butt that obeys laser pointer held by Scottish-Danish Donald Pleasance in a wheelchair. Telepathic flies, telepathic sleepwalking girl, roommate who steals your clothes to make out with boy leaving for the army tomorrow morning, wind that drives you mad, near-death fall from roof saved by clothing catching on nail and a nice bush underneath, monkey with a razor, inappropriately timed metal music to somebody being put into a sad body bag, inappropriately timed metal music to emergency phone call, and inappropriately timed metal music to walking slowly around a room. Face peeling, lip slashing, thumb breaking, IV pulling, driving cars at full speed at Jennifer Connelly, like full speed at 16-year-old girl. This is not like stunts. These are just people throwing cars at her in the street, forced puking, mitten covered in maggots, towel covered in maggots, hand covered in maggots, fly in box who can sniff out murderers, vegetarianism, and
gross.
and forced voiceover to explain random things like reading aloud a letter just so we know what's happening. A little bit of trivia. The story Jennifer tells about her mother abandoning her in a story about why she's raised by her famous father was an actual story from Dario Argento's own childhood. I think not having the famous father, but being abandoned by his mother. Argento has cited this film as his personal favorite among his work. I wonder if this is true about every time I get the trivia in IMDb, it's always the director's favorite film of their work. So he
hated
wonder.
Cats and Nine Tails, so you know.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have at least one point of proof that might lead towards this. The film was inspired to Dario Argento, that's a weird sentence, after he learned that insects are sometimes used during murder investigations.
Okay.
It is shot in English and dubbed in Italian. The shots of swarms of insects covering the exterior of the school and later nearly bottling out the moon were achieved through visual effects. They dumped a bunch of coffee grounds in a tank of water, filmed it, and then superimposed the new footage over the existing background shots. At one point, I think they just literally take a marker and just like make a dot for a fly like across the screen. It looks way too big and way too much like a Sharpie.
So the coffee grounds play the part of the insects?
The insects when they're swarming.
I'd love to see an actual, behind the scenes shot of that.
It'd be so fun to just like see how them do. Oh, that'd be so good. For the final scene where a character is swarmed with flies, over 2 million eggs were brought and incubated in an oven. As soon as they hatched, actor David Morata was put into the makeup and wardrobe, then rushed to set. To attract the newborn flies, his clothes and face and covered face were coated in glucose, and the flies were released from very fine. Sorry, trying to read this. It's very clunky sentence writing. Flies were released from very fine nets to swarm his body. After completing the scene, the crew opened the studio windows to release all of the flies, but they inhabited the neighborhood businesses for weeks. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
They caused a real issue. Jennifer Connelly had part of her finger bitten off, by the chimpanzee in the final scene at the end of the film.
Damn.
Shit.
She was rushed to the hospital and the finger was reattached. The chimp generally did not like Connolly. Tanga also escaped into the woods at one point while filming and took several hours to find. The movie didn't get great reviews. The Guardian declared that Creepers, which is what they also called it, they cut it down to 82 minutes and released it as Creepers, which means it got rid of 30 minutes of footage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. No wonder he didn't like it.
No kidding. Argento at his most throwaway is what he said. And even Kim Newman, who's a well-renowned genre lover, didn't like this movie. New Line was the ones responsible for the cut down. And since it's been re-released by Arrow, and a cool soundtrack put out by Waxwork Records, which I am definitely going to hunt down if it still is existing in an amount I can pay for. And last but not least, the imagery, aesthetic, and partial plot points of the film were used as inspiration for the 1995 survival horror video game Clock Tower.
Weird.
Oh, I remember Clock Tower. Wow.
Yep.
I seem to recall, I like the movie mostly because of the imagery, but I seem to recall being confused, like if this was happening at all or if it was like dreams and stuff like that.
Interesting. I felt like pretty grounded that it was real. It's just very strange.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It's a good one.
I mean, it'd be interesting that adds another layer. If she is actually schizophrenic in a hospital somewhere, then.
Well, yeah.
Not that that's what schizophrenia is, because it's not, but that's okay. This movie is fast and loose with the shit.
Movies aren't great for portraying true mental illness.
Yeah.
And then Connolly goes on to win an Oscar or something for A Beautiful Mind, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, oh God, she's so beautiful. It's watching her in this film, she's just acting way above her. She should not be this good for a 16-year-old. And I'm pretty sure they actually do stick this IV in her arm and pull it out. Everything feels very real, like way too real. It doesn't look faked the way that you're used to seeing things. It looks a little wrong, but in a way that feels very like, oh God, that's actually how it looks. Yeah.
I remember being very impressed with her in Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Pretty good. A nice startup.
Yes.
Let's see. I've got another one here. This is a little off genre, but so what? 1995's Living in Oblivion.
I've loved you from the moment we met.
Then why didn't you tell me?
We were working together. I didn't want anything to interfere.
And all this time, I thought.
That's a cut. Okay, we're back in. We are back. We are in. All right, hold it down, people. Hold it down.
Scene 6, rolling. Today, I'm not going to settle for okay. This is a big scene, and I'm not leaving till we get it.
Whatever it takes, Nick. We're here for you.
You're a great director, man. Your films are totally whack.
I'm excited to be working with you.
You were really great in that Richard Gere movie.
I'm ready, Nick.
Right, now we're making a fucking movie! Action! I had this dream last night. I was on set. Everything was going wrong, and no matter how hard I tried to keep things together, the more they just fell apart. You know what that dream was telling me, Nicole? That I just have to roll with it.
The light! Is everybody hurt? Is anybody okay?
Boom's in.
Nobody drink the milk.
What's gonna happen next? Everyone just relax.
Nick!
What?
I feel like shit.
I think I'm doing feels fake. I can't act. I should just do shower scenes in Richard Gere movies for the rest of my life.
The only place I've seen dwarves and dreams is in stupid movies like this.
Call me a cab.
I'm gonna have a heart attack.
No, you're not. Or if you do, save it for the end of the scene, okay?
This one's Rotten Tomatoed at 88 by critics, 87 by the audience.
Wow, very in agreement.
The IMDb budget, I don't think is accurate. It said it was $500,000, but watching some of the extras on these, I get the impression could have been under $100,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very, very low budget, and almost most of it was put in by people who are on screen. So I don't think there's $500,000 in this by any means. Box office of $1,000,000.1. 11790. This is written and directed by Tom DeCilio, who also did Johnny Suede, Delirious, and a lot of Law and Order.
Okay.
This stars. There's actually, after watching this, I realized there's at least 2, maybe 3 people I could have picked from this movie as went on to be much bigger than you expected. Steve Buscemi is not one of them. You'll know him from Fargo, Reservoir Dogs. He also had a really interesting New York Underground film career in the early 80s.
Yeah.
He did some really wild stuff. You could almost say Catherine Kinnear. I just don't know if you qualify her as big enough. I mean, she went on to be very successful, but she's not, you'd recognize her if you saw her.
Okay.
She's one of those guys, but she's in Johnny Suede, being John Malkovich. Oh, she was the witch, I guess you'd say, in Brand New Cherry Flavor.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And the other
the mom in Get Out then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is another guy that would have easily qualified, but I forgot he was even in this. I started watching it. Dermot Mulroney.
Oh, wow.
This is he's been in a bunch of stuff, but nothing, he's like cop number 2 or shit like that. He went on to be in Point of No Return, Career Opportunities, Must Love Dogs. Let's see, there's also James LaCrosse, who's in this, who's in Knight Rider and Where the Day Takes You. He is a yeoman actor. He's just been in friggin' everything. But the man I originally approached this movie for isn't in it as much as I thought. Well, Dermot Mulroney's one of the leads, but is Peter Dinklage.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that.
This is his first named role.
Wow.
The first thing I saw him in was called The Station Agent, which is a phenomenal film. You probably have heard of him from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Elf. Hilarious scene in Elf. And rumored to be in a remake of The Wild Bunch.
Whoa.
And has been cast in a remake of The Toxic Avenger.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Like, what? Anyways, phenomenal actor. This is a film. The 90s had this huge glut of films about making films. Most of them are fine. This one is phenomenal. So it starts off inappropriately, 90s black and white. Mulroney plays the DP in the movie, wears a beret, big leather vest, and at one point has an eye patch for a while. Just looks like a douchey DP. It's great. Buscemi plays the director, and he is phenomenal in the role. All the roles, if you've ever been on set, nails what the AD acts like, what the director often does, what the DP does, what the gaffers do, what the grip. I mean, these are all definitely independent filmmakers making an independent movie. When the camera starts to roll and they're doing action, everything turns to color. This doesn't necessarily stay through the whole movie, but that's because the movie's fairly dreamy, I guess you can almost say. This was Catherine Kinnear's was the main one in this scene, and she does a phenomenal job of being a bad actor. Like that kind of mid-level acting that you see in independent movies a lot. And this first 25 minutes of this movie are a goddamn nightmare if you've ever made a movie. And it's so well done because it's what could go wrong on a set, but nothing's exaggerated. Everything that goes wrong on the set could very easily go wrong on any set. It just happens to be all at the same time almost. The only one I think probably won't happen on modern sets is when the light explodes. Right. Because it's almost all LED lights now, and those don't get hot enough to
People won't touch it with their hand and therefore have the oil go on the thing and then have it explode.
Basically, anything that could go wrong happens, and it's disturbing and uncomfortable and hilarious at the same time. It ends when the director wakes up and you realize this has been his nightmare as he gets woken up to be taken to set by the driver. And so it's like, oh, nice. Perfect. Thank you for setting this up. He has a great line about being a filmmaker that is so disturbing. Being a filmmaker is all just one compromise and disappointment after another.
So true.
So after that 30 minutes, we feel like we're getting into the real movie, and it starts to roll. The movie is color, or just a regular color movie. This is not, again, like I think one of the movies I talked about recently, this is a slice of life film. This isn't a character arc movie. This isn't a 3-act structure. This is a day in the life on the set. It is way accurate. This may have been made in 95, but everything is still relevant today as far as the way sets run most of the time. James L. Gross plays the arrogant big name guy who's slumming it with the thing. He, at the last minute, replaced who was supposed to be Brad Pitt. Was supposed to be the role.
In real life, or?
The actor James L. Gross replaced to Brad Pitt because Brad Pitt had to go out and do Legends of the Fall.
Which is weird because I thought that character was just based off of actual Brad Pitt.
That's the rumor. And the documentary the director addresses that. He said, when we were at Sundance, somebody asked me that, and I thought it was kind of fun, so I sort of ignored it. I should have shot it down right there. This was never, because he said Brad Pitt was wonderful. He wanted to be on the set. He wanted to do this role. He just couldn't. So there's no way, in any way, did he mean this to be disparaging against Brad Pitt or anybody else.
Yeah.
But, and he's a young filmmaker.
That's what Brad Pitt's lawyers have told me to say.
A good chunk of the movie is shooting a scene and then like shooting a little bit more, but the most of it is there's the scene in the beginning where they're shooting the mother-daughter, and that's the dream. Then there's the scene where you go through the part of being the asshole actor who, I'm just trying things, just trying to do something different, and doesn't really want to work with anybody and wants to alter the blocking. So it's all about him, and it's very fun. Then another alarm goes off. It's like, so, and then it's, I think it's Catherine wakes up at this point, and it's sort of like, well, okay, is the whole thing real? So parts of it still feel real, but parts of it are like, oh, what part of that was her nightmare? Because that nightmare for her would be the part where the big actor and the director go off to the side. And of course she wants to check her audio. Their mics are still hot. She puts on the headphones to listen to the audio back. But before she can put the headphones down, she hears the big guy complaining, well, she's not a very good actor. And of course, directors being what directors will do sometimes, like, hey, I need you to support her, bring her up in her acting abilities. You're so much better than she is. Yeah. Even though he doesn't remotely believe that. He thinks she's phenomenal. The actual writer-director wrote the movie for her originally. It was originally a short film that he wrote specifically for her to be in. So crossing lines and wires and everything. But, that upsets her and sets her off on a great little takedown of the lead guy, which ends up with a physical fight between the director and the asshole actor. And the director's like, I always wanted to do that, so I thought I'd write it into my movie. And now we've got Peter Dinklage. What does Peter Dinklage appear in? A red wall dream sequence with the lead in a wedding dress.
Oh my God.
And he is pissed off about being cast as he has this great line where he spews out, have you ever had a dream with a dwarf? I've never had a dream with a dwarf. And just off on how stupid he thinks the whole situation is. Why is it always, it's a dream. Oh, put a dwarf in it. Now it's, okay. It's great. And he is so subtle in the anger building. It is so well done and so earned, where the scene is he walks in with an apple and the lady's supposed to reach out for the apple because she's hungry or whatever. And director keeps telling him to laugh at the end, and he never does. And it just keeps building up. And the guy's like, why do you want me to laugh? I don't understand why I should laugh. And the outburst is so well earned and so awesome. And it was so well done that a lot of not necessarily most of the crew had read the script. It's not uncommon for a script not to read the script. So they thought his diatribe was real. Like he is pissed off because he yells and then storms off set. So he's like, holy shit. But so he is, right from the beginning, this is a guy who can command the screen. I love this film. This, of course, at that moment, then everything falls apart, and Buscemi goes on this incredible rant and raging against the actors and the crew and yelling about everything. Apparently, when he did this, he did a base one, which was closer to the script. And when they did the reverse to show the crew reacting to him, he did it again, but he just made up whatever shit he wanted to. And the director's like, we're turning the camera around and you're doing your part again, and you're doing that because that was so much better. So they reversed everything again so he could do this invented rant, and it's awesome. It is so good. The filmmaker in me loves the end of this because it's hard to say it's a spoiler alert, but there's a moment where his mom comes in and rescues the whole thing, and it turns into this phenomenal scene, and it's so cool, and the dream sequence is excellent that I'm sitting in my chair watching this going, yes! It's like a sports movie or something. Rudy's here! There's the moment that everybody who's watched this film, who's been on a scene, knows. Room tone.
Oh my God, yes.
There's an interview with James on the set, and he said he loves the fact that he knows whenever he's on a set anywhere and they do room tone, someone else on that set is thinking of that scene from that movie. It's like, yeah, you're right. That is true. So this is one of my favorite movies I've watched in the show for a long time. I forgot how much I loved it because that nightmare opening sat in my head so deeply that I kind of forgot what happens in the rest of the movie. Steve Buscemi's character is named Nick Reeve. Reeve is the French word for dream. Or rêve, probably.
Clever.
Yes. Yeah, so it's...
that sounds like an indie film writing moment right there.
Very much. The director didn't want to beg people for money, so he asked actors if they would work for free, and all of them agreed to work for free on this film. Most of them even put money into the movie being made. Eventually, anybody who contributed was able to get a part in the movie, and some of them fairly large parts. A lot of this was due to the guy's work before, and his reputation was great. He did Johnny Suede, which is a Brad Pitt film, and Brad Pitt's involvement in his saying he was good kind of, oh, maybe this guy really is okay. And I'm sure if Brad Pitt had been in it, this would have been a much, much larger film. They shot it in 16 days. It's almost all one location. There's an outside and a hotel room and stuff, but it's almost all on that small set. This was Peter's first credited role. I think I mentioned that, but he never first named character. There were no auditions. Well, there was one audition. The only person who auditioned was Peter because he hadn't done anything. But he was immediately offered the part after the audition. Like they finished the audition, said, "You want to do this?" I was like, yeah. Tom said it was such a glorious set because they had no producers. The producers were actually working on the film. They had no behind the scenes money men bothering them. They had no agents trying to get them to do something in a different way. Or like I said, it was just great. Everybody came together and made it a great movie. James the Gross got his role because the director was on the phone with Catherine complaining that they just lost Brad Pitt because he had to go make his movie. He happened to be on a walk outside and she recognized him from something, opened the door and said, "Hey, you want to be in a movie?" And he said, "Sure." And he is really good at this. He plays such a fun asshole. And Dinklage's casting to call in for the audition thought it was a friend calling him and joke and making fun of him. So he hung up and the guy called back. He's like, no, it really is. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But and it was a massive Sundance success. And this was, Sundance was still kind of fun. In 95, 96, it was still doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it won Best Screenplay. That was an awesome movie. So highly, highly recommended.
You're really making me want to watch this again because I remember seeing it multiple times after it came out, but still not for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
I've seen it not too long ago, and it was the first time I'd seen it, and it resonated so hard as being accurate to being on a set. And it's something that I actually, if I end up teaching another full class rather than like part of a class, I'm going to make my students watch this and be like, be prepared. This is the industry. This is what you're going, what you're going to experience. It is just so accurate and everyone's phenomenal.
Yeah. And it's the fun difference between indie film versus Hollywood movie, where when things went wrong, because the real stuff went wrong on the film as well, you have to be innovative and try to figure out a way to solve it, as opposed to, well, just write another check, and move on from the problem.
Let's see, 95. So you and I, Eric, had started working together by then. And that was just kind of a magical time when Tarantino and Rodriguez and everything and people like us were starting to feel like, oh my God, you can make a movie on your own. You don't have to have a studio behind you. And then all of the problems that come with trying to make a movie and no studio behind you.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the name of that New York director who worked with Steve Buscemi all the time?
I know who you're talking about, but I couldn't remember him. I tried to.
Yeah, he did that Bill Murray Dead Don't Stay Dead or whatever movie.
Oh,
got the big white hair, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he was like kind of the godfather of indie film in New York at that time, and he really brought up a couple of really interesting, talented people that I think otherwise would have been never would have quite made it.
Yeah, definitely.
Great topic, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, actually, great choice. It was hard to even choose a film, so there was too many great options.
There really were. That, though, means, Eric, you've got the choice for the next subgenre.
Yeah, let's see. We'll be generic and strange again. Go with like graveyard, funeral home, kind of something. Doesn't necessarily have to be the main plot line, but just some weird presence of graveyards, funeral homes.
Tombstone.
House by the Cemetery.
I have done so many films already that take place. I'm so sad. There's so many great ones I've already done that take place partly or mostly in graveyards, but it's fun. There's
probably others then.
Yeah, I bet. The horror genre probably has a few graveyard moments.
Sure. I like this idea. This is the part where I thank everybody for participating in the Value for Value, where I ask Eric, what did I say this time that you're going to edit out? Where I thank everybody for liking and sharing posts.
I'm open to options. Let's see. I recently also on the website Strange Aeons Radio, I added a link to our Etsy page.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for everyone who's buying stuff on the Etsy page, and all of that stuff means so much to us. Means so much just to get the little messages that we got. Yeah. We got a really nice message from Gwen talking about how much she loves the show. Or even the message I get from my mom every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you, and I wish that Vanessa didn't swear so much.
That's what my mom said.
Oh, I was talking about your mom.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Messaging me.
Oh, sure. I'm sure. Every time I talk to my mom, I swear she's just listened to one of our episodes, and she's like, "Oh, I wanted to ask you about this one thing." I'm like, "No, don't listen."
I love it. I think that's it then, right, guys? Should we table this conversation and return back 1 week from today?
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Okay. See you guys later.
Bye.
Strange Aeons Radio is artisanal quality podcasting, handcrafted with all natural ingredients, and edited to perfection by Eric Morgret. Our blistering theme song is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider dropping a positive review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh my God. That's so upsetting on every level. Where did that even come from? Why?